full-time for another company.
Oh, okay.
So, not really my business, separate than the fact that I'm doing as a consultant to one.
Oh, okay. Okay. My son-in-law just started a company with his two partners. He's in North Carolina. Just, when we were there 2 weeks ago, he got called to go to Phoenix for 3 days to meet their first customer.
Ian Mason?
First client.
Good for them.
He does
Recording in progress.
IT architect.
All right, good evening, everyone. I'll call today's meeting, Tuesday, July 1st, 2025, 7 p.m. council meeting to order. Roll call, please, Megan.
Davis. Here. Lampy.
Here.
Burke.
Here.
Bartz.
Here.
Planky.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Arnett.
Here.
Wetzel.
Here.
Moldenhauer.
Here.
Can you please join me with the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Sorry. Pastor Zimmerman from River Alliance, please come up. Thank you.
It seems over the past week or so I've had quite a few run-ins with public servants, our men and women in blue, and then the fire departments, not in a unlawful way. I want to be quick to say the first one was we had a meeting, an event sponsored by 5 local churches that happened at the town square, and our fire department graciously came over and filled our dunk tank, and so that was really fun to see. The next one was a kind of an encounter that I've really been blessed not to have happen to me in my 12 years as a pastor. I got a call, an emergency call from the Dodge County Sheriff that someone in our congregation had been killed in a car accident in northern Dodge County. And then all day long today, it seems I've been in the car and hearing about the police shooting in Milwaukee. And it's just kind of really, all of these events have brought me to mind of how important those roles are in our community. So that's what I would really like to focus. You guys make decisions that really affect them, and with our new fire station and the support that you give to all our men and women who are in uniform is very, I think that sends a good message to them. And so I just want to focus our prayer this evening on them as well, because it seems during this heat of the summer, things heat up all the way around. And so we'll just pray for their protection tonight. I'm reminded of John 15:13. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. Let's pray. Gracious and mighty God, we come before you tonight with hearts full of gratitude, but also filled with intercession. Thank you for the men and women who serve as guardians of our communities. We think of all our public servants, including Watertown City Council, but especially those who wear the uniforms of our police and fire departments. We continue to be amazed at how these people respond without hesitation when others are in need. Lord, we are mindful of the burdens that they carry, the dangers they face, and the sacrifices they make. We ask you to be their shield, be their fortress, protect them in every call, calm their fears, and give them wisdom in every decision they make. We give thanks for their courage, their compassion, and their daily acts of service. May they sense how deeply they are appreciated by those they protect. Let them know that their work is not unseen by you, the one who watches over all. May your hand guide them, and may your grace sustain them. Lord, I just lift up this meeting to you this evening. Give wisdom and understanding to these men and women who do such an admirable job at governing our city. Bless our mayor, and these alder people as they make decisions on our behalf. I pray this all in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mr. Zimmerman. Okay. Next, minutes of council meeting held on June 3rd, 2025. Make some motions. Raise your hand a little bit so I can see you.
Move to approve as submitted.
Motion by Arnett,
Second.
second by Blanky. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Next, we have comments and suggestions from citizens present. You have up to 3 minutes. If the timer goes off, just finish your thoughts, please. And you can state your name and your address at the podium before you start.
Jennifer Hedrick.
That's only on.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Hedrick. Should talk closer. My address is 915 Garfield Street here in Watertown. And I am a member of the Becoming a Welcoming Watertown Committee. I just wanted to share. My family moved to Watertown when I was 5 years old, and my parents each established a small business here and became active members of the community. Watertown was a safe, friendly, middle-class city with solid core values. It offered jobs, recreational activities, church affiliations, and so on. I enjoyed a wonderful education in the Watertown School District, which prepared me for university degrees, living abroad, and a rewarding career in life. I spent the majority of my professional career working as an occupational therapist in schools around the state, the last of which was here at my alma mater, Watertown, which I was thrilled about, to come to Watertown and work. Working here, however, I became astonished to see how things had changed in this community. I worked with a large number of students who, throughout the district, I worked with students ages 3 through 21 in special education as an occupational therapist, who were living in some degree of homelessness with their families, living in cars, hotels, on couches, and also without enough to eat, housing and food insecurity. It just shocked me. How could this be the city I grew up in? So the concept of people freezing to death here in Watertown was just utterly foreign to me and dismaying. But as we know, that's exactly what happened here last winter. In addition to my work with building a welcoming Watertown, I'm also actively involved with Bread and Roses, which provides a free meal weekly to community members. Food insecurity continues to be a real and growing issue here in Watertown, like homelessness. This is not the city I grew up in, and I don't believe it's the legacy that any of us want to allow to continue. I ask you to support funding a warming shelter as we have proposed, as the Building a Welcoming Watertown Committee has proposed. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Ms.
Barb Weiss.
Hi, I'm Barb Weiss. I live at 1118 Riverview Lane in Watertown. Last time, and I'm part of Building a Welcoming Watertown and asking for your support for the welcoming shelter that we're asking for. Last time I mentioned that I grew up on a farm not too far from here and learned that the community shows up for each other. So this time I thought I would illustrate it with two actual examples. The first time Highway 26 was expanded, the farm just to the north of our farm needed to move their barn and their house because it was going to be part of the highway. So that farmer decided he needed to sell his farm. So my dad bought that farm. Then he had to move the barn and the house. Several days after he had bought the barn from the state, another neighbor's barn burnt down. Now, if you're a dairy farmer, you only have a few hours before you have to milk those cows again. my dad offered that barn to our neighbor. The neighbor knew that he had a certain amount of time because the state obviously had given my dad a time limit as to when that barn needed to be moved. But it gave him the opportunity to deal with insurance and to think about what he really needed to do. Okay, now that was my dad helping someone else. Now, the next part is my dad. A few years after that, my dad was seriously injured in a farming accident. Many of you may know that farming is one of the most dangerous occupations you can have. Then the community stepped up for our family. So there's two parts to this story. One, my dad helped when it needed to be helped. And two, we never know when we are the people that are going to need help. And that's what we're asking the community to do, is to step up for our fellow people when they need help. Thank you.
Thank you.
Elizabeth Fritz.
My name is Elizabeth Fritz. I live at 112 North Maple Street, and I'm the president of Building a Welcoming Watertown. I am also here tonight to advocate for a proposal for a public-private partnership with the city to open a warming shelter before the next winter season. We believe in partnership and in the power of local government and grassroots organizations working together to meet urgent community needs. Our goal is simple: to prevent further tragic deaths from cold exposure among our unhoused neighbors. As you know, last winter, Watertown lost lives, people who were part of our community and who froze to death in our city. We must not let that happen again. Our proposal is modest in scale, but potentially life-saving in impact. It includes staffing, safety considerations, and a sustainable operating model that makes use of existing city space and leverages community volunteers. That's that partnership. We're prepared to do the work, but we need collaboration with you. Right now, this proposal is working its way through city committees, so thank you to those making that happen. And we know that takes time, but we also know that winter will not wait, so we do need to keep this moving. Every step forward matters. Every vote of support brings us closer to protecting the most vulnerable among us. Watertown has the chance to lead with compassion and practicality and to show what's possible when we face hard problems together. So let's not look back next spring and wonder if we could have done more. And on a related note, I also want to commend the city for taking action during the recent power outages and heat wave. We definitely noticed and appreciated your opening the senior center, so those who needed a safe place to get out of the heat had somewhere to go. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Chris Ross.
I yield my time.
William Reichertz.
Good evening. I'm William Reichertz, N7886 Coffee Road, Town of Watertown. I'm here also in support of this warming shelter, and I'm going to touch on a short individual history, a little history of Watertown, and then what I think is a public responsibility in this matter. So, the church I grew up in happens to be Ebenezer Moravian. My father at one point was interested in becoming a Catholic priest. We have Jewish connections in the family and members of the Church of Latter-day Saints and the Lutheran Church. My Moravian church motto is in essentials unity, in non-essentials liberty, and in all things love or charity. It is not the type of faith that demands others believe as they do. They're not only okay with religious plurality, they probably rejoice in it, and probably rejoice in the First Amendment Establishment Clause, whereby no single religion should expect or intend to dominate in the public sphere. And so, as a religious faith alone, it is never something that a public body should use as its predominant decision-making process. Public bodies in a democracy are required to use the best science and social science and logic to create a compromise so that everyone benefits. Having said that, the Beatitudes and the Golden Rule are generally common to most faiths and ethical systems. What we do unto the least among us matters a great deal for the betterment of community. So taking this to the public sector, and in light of the fact that this is Watertown, I want to mention Karl Schurz and his wife Marguerite. They were national leaders of the German 48er movement that embodies this philosophy that works for the greater good of all community. My great-grandfather was a German 48er fighting for democracy in Europe and in the United States. Watertown is home to America's first public kindergarten, and without Karl Schurz, Abraham Lincoln may never have been president. In Watertown's redevelopment, it would be wise to honor these historic American leaders. I'll close with a quote from one of America's preeminent founding fathers. Thomas Paine said, "In a land of wealth, there should be no poverty." I'm sure we all cringe and wonder what to do each time we're confronted by someone begging or a homeless person. That is our conscience being pricked. We have a faith-based, ethical, social science-based, and democratic responsibility to care for those with less. No one is happy when extremes result in unequal opportunity. We all do better when we all do better, so I urge the Common Council to work with this organization to establish a warming shelter. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chris Ross.
I'm yielding my time.
Is it? Okay. Thank you, Megan. All right. Next, comments and suggestions, reports. Transit minutes from April 30th, Public Works minutes from May 27th, Site Plan Review minutes from June 9th, Finance Committee minutes from June 10th, Town Square Programming Commission minutes from June 18th, Site Plan Review minutes from June 23rd. Mr. Berg?
Mayor Stotts, I was looking over the minutes, and I know one of the things that we typically do, but it's not consistent, is at the end of the minutes written, they will put down the time of adjournment, and that is usually an important thing to know for different reasons. But it appears on these minutes, and I've noticed them in the past, so I'm just asking you as our mayor, if you can, to communicate back with these people writing minutes for the different boards, if they can remind themselves to put down a time of adjournment when they do finish the meeting.
Okay, so no, Mr. Berg. Okay. Mr. Lampe?
Mayor, I just wanted to look at the item on page 10 of our packet. This is the finance pieces here. In terms of future items for the finance committee, do we have action that we normally take regarding sizing of the contingency fund, or is that usually left until we do budgets in October?
You're looking at page 10?
Yes, page 10 of the packet, about halfway through item 4.
Contingency fund is one of the expense account numbers, and so it would typically be something that's done during the budget season.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Let's move on to communications recommendations then. Mason Economic Development Update presentation. You got control, Mason?
Thanks for your patience with that. Mayor Stocks asked me to give an update to all of you. This is something I had been planning on doing this year. I had meant to do this in June, and hopefully July 1st isn't too far past that for all of you. But wanted to give an economic development update to all of you this evening. And this is going to be a high-level update. I'm not going to dive deep into the weeds on all of these topics, but just wanted to give you a general overview of some of the things happening in the city of Watertown right now. Tonight we'll talk a little bit about housing projects that we have ongoing, industrial developments. I'll talk about the downtown a little bit, and then we'll have some workforce notes, and I'll talk briefly about the RDA. And at the end, I'm also going to have an invitation for all of you, so hold tight for that. So first of all, housing. I know that's been a big topic here in Watertown over the past couple of years, and I'm proud to say today we have a lot of housing breaking ground and also upcoming. I'm sure you're all familiar with Rock River Ridge, the development on the former Bethesda campus. Right now, single-family home construction is well underway. 16 single-family lots have already sold, and Harbor Homes is now a year ahead of schedule on purchasing lots from the foundation. If you remember, the Greater Watertown Community Foundation owns that land. They're selling the land to the developers as they go along in phases. As of right now, due to the demand, they're a year ahead on those lot sales. Lumen Terrace Horizon is breaking ground later this summer on 4 buildings, which will comprise 92 apartment units. If you all recall, the city created TID number 9 to support that project. And White Oak Builders is also working on the twin homes in that development. One of those builds is already up, and they've already started work on a second. So things are moving along well at Rock River Ridge. As far as other developments this summer, Edge Field, south of the existing Hep Heights, is breaking ground later this summer. That will consist of 43 single-family homes and 12 twin home units. And then the Enclave, which is Belinsky's next subdivision. Those are smaller lot, single-family homes. The average size will be about 1,500 square feet. They're targeting a mid-300s price range. Those will also be breaking ground later this summer. As far as other projects that are in a more diverse range, College Park is the project planned by Habitat for Humanity across from Madison College. Those will be 12 duplex units, so 6 builds in an affordable range. And then we are also talking with a private developer planning 24 additional units on that same block. If you'll recall, the city will be constructing a Wilbur Street extension likely next year that is partially funded by a grant that we secured from the Dodge County Development Fund. Other projects throughout the city, the Oxbow, I'm sure you've heard about. Last week at Finance Committee, we presented a TIF request for that project. 68 higher-end apartment units on the former Johnsonville site. We are working on a term sheet for that development project that will be coming back to Finance Committee in the near future. Additionally, we're still talking with Bruce Loeb about his proposed development on Mary Street and Clark Street. And then we do also have a potential development project that's been talked about for a while on the city's south side. A local individual has land under contract. You'll probably be hearing more about that one in the near future. So I just wanted to emphasize in this overview, we're working on projects throughout the city, different project types, different price points. We're not focused on just apartments or just owner occupied. So I know I talk a lot about housing, and people ask, well, what about jobs? What about industrial growth? What about manufacturing? I want to remind people we are fortunate that we have a really strong industrial base here in Watertown with a lot of good manufacturers already. Recently, Johnsonville announced that they're adding 75 new second shift jobs, wages between $25 and $45 an hour. That's tremendous news for the city of Watertown. There are also other companies talking about potential expansions. We are engaged with them. No, I can't name names tonight, but it is ongoing in discussion. I mentioned wages in the Johnsonville news. I think it's important to note that wages are trending upward here in Watertown. Our median household income today is just over $68,000 a year. Yes, we're still a little bit below state and national averages with that number, but we've made tremendous progress. 10 years ago, we were at about $54,000 for median household income. So we have seen growth here in Watertown in household incomes. Up there's a picture of Highway A. That's been divided from the rest of that parcel, which will be retained by the city for conservation and stormwater credit purposes. Highway A is the only major buildable site that the city owns right now. It's approximately 60 acres. We've initiated the process to rezone that to planned industrial. What is that? That's an industrial zoning type in the city that still allows a wide range of uses, but holds the development to higher aesthetic and green space standards. After coming to Plan Commission and talking to local stakeholders, it seemed like that was what the community wants, so that'll be coming to City Council, I believe, later this month for your first public hearing on that. As far as potential targets on that land, you heard Deb Reinbold talk about it recently, but food and beverage and biohealth could be potential targets with that property. So why are we working on Highway A right now? I think there's sometimes a narrative in the community that we have a lot of vacant industrial properties in the community. We actually don't. As of today, there's one building on South 12th Street. I've got the picture up. That building has 20,000 square feet of available space. The picture below that, I apologize, it's kind of zoomed out, but that's the former Western Industries property on South 10th Street. Was occupied by a company called HGR for a little bit a couple years ago. That building is now fully leased out to flat fee shipping. The 7-Up building on South 1st Street is now also fully leased out. So long term, we are going to need to build new industrial buildings if we're going to accommodate companies that want to come into Watertown. A note on that, requests for interest or proposal usually come through WEDC. We do work with Thrive, MadRep, and the counties to respond to those when we have a site that's appropriate. I got one on Monday. They were looking for a 240-acre site. Unfortunately, we don't have anything that could meet that demand, but long term, the city will need to continue looking at that. You heard Deb talk about it, and I just want to mention again recently, private utilities are a limiting factor on what types of industrial developments we can accommodate here in Watertown. We don't have the capacity for something the scale of Kikkoman and Jefferson. We wouldn't be able to build a new data center here, but we can accommodate light industry, pharmaceuticals, things of that nature. Do we have other marketable land in the city? We actually do, and we do share those sites when appropriate. There are still several undeveloped heavy industrial parcels south of the airport on Air Park Drive next to Fisher Barton, and there is also privately owned land near Archie Monuments that we have gotten permission from the property owner, to market. That one would need utilities extended if a project was going to come to that site. And again, long term, after Highway A, the city will need to have discussions and decide where we want to see industrial growth and business growth long term in the community. Wanted to note about downtown, and I'm really, I want to emphasize our downtown's in really good shape. I think a lot of you remember what it looked like 10 years ago, 15 years ago. We've had a lot of revitalization in the downtown. I note there are a few of the recent business openings we've had, Sassy Suites, Mattress by Appointment. I won't read the full list. Rafa Bowls is opening soon, supported by a Belts grant. And Los Perez, you might have seen at Plan Commission recently, is undergoing a pretty major remodel and a facade improvement that is going to look, it's going to be tremendous for that part of the downtown. Data I got from the Main Street program, the last 5 years have seen over $11 million in private investment in our downtown area, including 113 building renovations. And then I also want to note that just on the Main Streets, different programs, activities they've held in the community, over approximately last year, they've seen over 8,500 event attendees. Now that's just for Main Street events. So we are getting visitors to the downtown. I think the evidence is clear. Our downtown is not dying. We're actually doing pretty well compared to some other communities. And on that slide, I also note some of the tools that we have available to support downtown projects. in our community. Business retention and expansion, that is a program that we have, and we will be kicking it back up in the near future because we do want to make sure we continue working with our existing business community. That was something that was started under Mayor McFarland when my predecessor Alex was here, and we're going to be resuming it with Mayor Stocks in the near future. Visits are usually done in coordination with the chamber. We usually try to do those once a month or greater as needed. Goal is just to learn about businesses in the community, their needs, what they have going on, and how we can collaborate with them in the future. Press releases and media department produced videos are part of the program if the businesses are interested. And our next visit later this month, we're going to be going to Spuncast on the city's north side. So that'll be our first visit with Mayor Stocks. And I know you're not camera shy, Mayor Stocks, so I'm excited about that one. So any business can request a business retention visit. I've got the link up there on this slide. I talked a little bit about workforce in the community, and I want to touch on that just very briefly. I want people to remember that we currently have a labor shortage in Wisconsin. April of this year, there were roughly 26,000 more openings than job seekers. And current unemployment, I won't read through the statistics, but Wisconsin, as is typical, is below the national average. Jefferson and Dodge County are even lower. I believe those are May 2025 numbers. So we need to keep doing what we're doing in this community. We want to make sure that the people who work here can live here. We want to find ways to address things like the child care shortage. Our population is aging. On the left-hand side, I shared a map from our friends at UW Extension. In southern Wisconsin, Dane County is the only county currently to project a population workforce gain from 2020 to 2030. Jefferson County, we're a light blue. Dodge County is a dark blue. That's not what we want to see long term. We need to reverse that trend. We need to get more people into our workforce here in Watertown. So we can do that by focusing on some of the things we're already doing, building housing, being a great place to live, work, and play. I'll just touch on very briefly commuter data. I think I like to share this because it shows some interesting trends and there's some interesting opportunities there. On a daily basis, as of a couple years ago, only about 3,100 people live and work in Watertown each day. 8,700 people commute out, about close to 6,000 people commute in. I think that presents some opportunities. Nearly 75% of the workers who commute into Watertown are aged 30 to 54 or younger. So we need to find ways to get some of those people to if they're already working here in Watertown, find a way that they can live here in Watertown. And for workers who commute out of Watertown, 56% make $40,000 a year or more. So it doesn't take a scientist to figure out they're leaving for higher paying jobs. Long term, we want to bring some of those jobs here to Watertown. The RDA, what does the Watertown Redevelopment Authority have going on? We're continuing to work on the Rock River District Plan. We are meeting with a variety of stakeholders, talking about potential ways to fund that Riverwalk plan in the downtown. I can't share those yet, but hopefully you'll be hearing more about those soon. The Belts Foundation grants continue to draw strong interest. Those were generously funded by Dr. Belts for a 3-year commitment. We're in year 3. I got another application for a Belts grant today from an existing downtown business, and hopefully we'll be bringing that to the RDA later this month. The revolving loan fund still has about $120,000 available to loan out. I am expecting an application from an existing downtown business soon on that. That's a 4.95% fixed interest rate. It's not as low as the original one we had with the program, but still lower than many businesses could get from a commercial loan at a local bank. The Housing Rehab Grant Program, which was generously funded by the council with $100,000 of ARPA money, that's funded 11 projects, and we have a 12th one being evaluated. Those funds will be expended in the near future. As far as other items, we've been talking about a citywide sign grant program that will be coming to the RDA for review later this month, and then hopefully to the council for a future approval. And then we're also talking about future strategy sessions with the RDA board to identify future goals and opportunities. And I have one more item that ties into that. The RDA board has agreed to bring WEDA, that's WEDA without an H, that's the Wisconsin Economic Development Association, to Watertown for Economic Development 101. It's a general overview of what's happening in the state in terms of economic development, basic practices, things like that. The goal isn't to turn everybody into an economic development wizard, just give a baseline understanding. This will be two 90-minute sessions done by Melissa Hunt, who's the WEDA president. She's familiar with Watertown. She's actually done consulting work here in the past. It'll be two 90-minute sessions, one on July 15th before Common Council, the other on July 29th. There are no other city meetings that day. Mayor Stocks has been looped in, and we also want to invite the Common Council. You're invited and encouraged to attend. We'll be sending out a formal invite on that tomorrow. So with that, I thank you for your time. If there's any other quick questions, if the mayor allows, I'm happy to answer those.
First of all, thank you. This was an excellent presentation. Where will this presentation live so that we can reference it or pass it on to others? Are you going to hang it somewhere, your PowerPoint?
My PowerPoint?
Yeah, your PowerPoint.
We can definitely share it. I'd be happy to, I don't know if you're looking for me to email it to the council or if you'd like.
I just didn't know if it would be on the RDA website or if there's a website or a webpage on the city that belongs to you.
I think putting it on the RDA website is a great idea. I'd be happy to do that.
So then I have a follow-up question. It's more a matter of curiosity. You had a slide that said that there's Wisconsin currently has a labor shortage.
Yes.
That's surprising to me because that has not been the experience of recent college graduates that I'm working with that are having a really, really difficult time trying to find a job. So that begs the question, what kind of labor shortage? Is there a specific area where there's a labor shortage?
I think if we dove into it, it's a skilled labor shortage. That's number one. But even in like the service industries, it seems like those types of jobs are also having trouble attracting enough applicants. I have heard though what you're referencing, and it seems like the hiring process in the United States has gotten extremely challenging and difficult. People have to navigate through AI screenings of their job applications. There's entities that will put in fake applications, so the companies have to kind of weed through those. So it's kind of a technology challenge, I think, that we're trying to come to grips with.
Thank you.
Mr. Berg.
Yeah. Actually, Mason, I've actually looked at our website, and I think we've made improvements, but I get a lot of comments in my real estate that we could do a lot better in the way we promote, market, and make people aware of our city, either industrially as far as opportunity or business and what have you. What do you see we can do to market, promote, and make people more aware of our city in online and in other ways of social media?
I think we have to continue with our messaging. I work pretty closely with Lisa Famularo, our media department director. I think she has some renewed staff capacity there, which is great. I think we're always open to talk more about how to market Watertown, how to make people more aware of us. I can say we're on the radar. We do get interest from businesses. We get interest from housing developers and so forth. But I guess, are you focusing more on like industrial properties? How do we market those? Yeah.
Industrial and commercial.
Yeah, I think that's tough. If there's ways that we can share properties on the city website, I'm open to exploring those. I do want to note that Thrive Economic Development does already share a lot of our industrial properties on their website, so I want to make sure it's not just a duplication of efforts, but we can talk about that.
Mayor? So, first, just more of a, I'll call it procedural for lack of a better point. I generally try to refrain from making off-the-cuff remarks to newly presented material. As such, it's very helpful to me as a council member to have the materials in advance so I can give them thoughtful consideration and we can have true engagement at these situations. This is the second meeting in a row in which we've had a presentation which we did not receive in advance. I would like to see that
inside the packet.
as much as we can, please.
Okay. Try to do that, Mr. Arnett.
So I will say just a few brief things for this one, which is with regard to housing. I think it's very important for us as a council to understand that a number of those new housing that was cited are heavily subsidized by taxpayers. Tens of thousands of dollars per unit from taxpayers. But they are completely out of reach for most of the taxpayers in this community, as shown by that household medium income number. And understanding the great work being done by Habitat for Humanity to bring in some units at that one particular end, I would basically describe the different price points currently being pursued as really expensive and super expensive from the perspective of the majority of our residents of the community. And then the only thing I would add is related to both the housing and industrial, and the point that was made about particularly electrical service is one key thing, but there are other aspects of utilities. At one point in time, we had rather forward-looking utilities plans on our books. Like they were looking out 25 years. Potentially, because that's what you have to do. If you want to do this kind of thing over long term, it's not a 5-year plan, it's not a 10-year plan. It's a 20, 25-year plan when you're talking particularly about water, wastewater, and those other kind of things. And it's my intent as Chair of Public Works to get back to that kind of long-range planning process, because that's the kind of thing that we can begin, again, it's another arrow in the quiver. And then as an economic development discussion to say, look, we're planning for development in this area, and here's what we're going to work on. And that gives somebody something to work with there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Arnett. Mr. Lampy?
I wanted to echo the excellence of the report. That was a good amount of information in a concise format. One of the things that struck me in there was the 311 housing units that were mentioned on the 4 projects at about 2.5 people per unit. That gets us to about 775 residents, which actually gets us to one of the goals we're going to see in the Park and Rec projections here in a bit. So I was very happy to see that there's essentially planned housing to increase the population of the city in a fairly short order. Mike, 2 questions have to do with some of the content I don't think we saw today, and those are essentially parcels or areas that we've targeted for development. And on the RDA, there was the Rock River District.
Yeah.
But do you want to mention a few things about that area?
Well, I talked about the Oxbow. I'm not quite sure what else you're referencing. If you're talking about the 2 parcels that we had a developer looking at, is that what you're asking?
There's a parcel marketing.
Okay, I understand the catalytic sites.
Yes.
Yes. We're continuing to have conversations about those. Mayor Stocks and I actually received an idea for a potential project on one of those sites. It's extremely preliminary. Just today I'm talking about. I think long term, I'm not sure what format would be appropriate, but I think I need council input on what we're going to do with the site by the town square. We had an interesting presentation at the RDA meeting last month about a potential concept. I am talking with one of the private property owners of one of those sites. They're coming up with a marketing plan for a potential project on that site. So we are engaged with it.
Okay, thank you. The other one that I think is of interest, especially for folks who've been on finance for a while and have helped allocate ARPA dollars, was the investment that we've made on the far west side of town on the commercial development that at one point I think we had Gray Wolf looking at. Is there anything happening or out there that you can talk about?
Not right now, unfortunately. Gray Wolf Partners dissolved. They no longer exist as a company, and that land was sold. So at this time, I don't have any news on that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you, Mr. Becker.
Thank you.
Okay, move on to new business. Review and take action committee appointments.
Mayor? So move for appointments.
Mr. Lampy, should we just do them separate?
I'm going to recuse myself for this
The whole thing?
whole thing.
Okay. Mr. Wetzel, make a motion to approve? Yes. Okay.
Second.
Okay. Second by Mr. Bartz. Okay. Take the roll, please, Megan.
Wetzel?
Aye.
Moldenhauer?
Aye.
Davis? Berg?
Aye.
Bartz? Blanky? Smith?
Aye.
Arnett?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay, thank you. Next, review and take possible action, Parks and Open Space Plan amendments. Wanna come up, Christine?
Thank you. I do have Jody here with me who drafted the entire plan, so I would request that she come up.
Jody, come on up.
Yeah.
Very good.
But just so everyone is aware, this is a Parks and Open Spaces plan that helps us to get DNR grants and everything like that. It's a 5-year plan for not only park spaces, but the city as a whole.
I think this is for information only right now, a resolution to come later.
Yes.
Thank you for having me. My name is Jody Rader. I'm with HKGI, and we're the consulting firm that the city hired to assist with the creation of the Parks and Open Space Plan for Watertown. We started this process in January, well, I think technically December of last year, and we worked through a pretty, I think, robust community engagement effort to collect ideas and understand the community, as well as performed a good amount of needs analysis in order to understand what are some of the gaps in your current park system. And together with staff and also through community engagement, developed a set of goals and objectives loosely based on your former plan, but revamped a little bit. And then also we developed a list of projects and recommendations that you'll see in the plan draft, as well as implementation strategy and outline of potential budget years for those projects. We realize that this is an ambitious plan, and it is a 5-year horizon, and that's based on the state's DNR requirements for outdoor recreation plans. However, we don't expect that everything can be implemented in 5 years, so it is ambitious, but it does kind of set the tone. Yeah, we welcome any questions that you have on the plan.
Mr. Blanky.
First comment, this is an extremely comprehensive and thorough report, and I very much appreciate it. As someone who grew up in Watertown, I jokingly say you can't throw a rock in this city and not hit a park, and that's a good thing. I've heard people complain about that we have too much parks, it's an expense, but I think it's one of the biggest assets this city has going for it. Especially, they're called special use parks, that section. I know I was on the Park Rec and Forestry Commission as a citizen member when we started the Huron View Park. And at that time it was called the micro park concept, taking little swaths of land that have virtually no use, you can't really do anything with them, and turning them into green space that's accessible to people. So that one, Sharp Corner Park, and even Reflection Park are kind of really good examples of that land that would just be used for nothing, and that we've taken that and used it well. The one question I had is towards the end of the report, there is this is somewhat foreshadowing, there was a comment about the condition of restroom facilities at some of the parks. And I think we're all sensitive to that topic, but I would like some more firm numbers if possible. Obviously it doesn't have to be now, but to know which parks if we're looking at something that can be renovated and repaired, or if we're looking at tear down and rebuild, because that is a topic that obviously is going to cause a lot of comment within the community, and I think we need to be sensitive of what we need and what we want to do with that.
So yeah, so we just actually did a renovation on quite a few of the restrooms in our parks. Lincoln was one, Union was another one, Timothy Johnson, and also, why am I forgetting it now? It will come to me, but there were 4 of them. And so those will stay as is. The ones that will need a deep dive look into potential tear down and restoration are the restrooms on Division by the tennis courts at Riverside. Washington Park, some are heated, some are not. Like one side is heated, one side is not. They're kind of in disrepair, and a lot of the fixtures need replacing, and the plumbing also is deteriorating. So that is another one. And then the other one that would need a harder look, and I just had it in my brain, which again has escaped me, sorry. But there are 3 that would definitely need to be looked at as either renovations or complete rebuilds. Along with that, I'm sorry, it was also at Riverside by the tennis courts. That one would be a complete removal and rebuild. Probably more of a modular unit up to just family style. So not all of them are going to be huge buildings. They're going to be more of a modular 2 family units kind of thing. So nothing crazy, but they will need some work. So.
Thank you.
Ms. Davis.
I also appreciate how comprehensive this was. I learned a lot. I read it all from beginning to end, and it was very, very helpful for me. I had 3, maybe 4 things I wanted to hit on. The first, we've already discussed tonight, but I do think it's important to hit on it again. Page 25 in our packet, there's that medium household income again mentioned here. And I think that's important. Here it says that the medium household income in Watertown is $67,189. It says it's lower than the state median income, and it's lower than that of Dodge County and Jefferson County. And I have that number written on a sticky note when I do budget and work on the finance committee, because that's really important for us to understand that there's a limitation to the amount that our citizens have, and we have to be really careful with that. And I know we all understand that and work through that very carefully when it comes to budget time. I also wanted to comment on page 54. This has just piqued my curiosity. Page 54 has a description of the relationship between public and private schools and how they make some of their spaces available to the public. I was just curious though, it indicates that some of the private schools are open to the public. Is that accurate? I would think for liability purposes, that would be something they want to be cautious about. So they had a list of several private schools that it says open to the public.
That could be just because it either is not fenced in, so thus the area would be open to whoever comes to that space.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the school itself, but the space. Yeah.
It was just curious to me. Okay, page 61. This was really interesting. This is where we have the comparison between our population and then the number of parks we have, the acreage. This is 61 in our packet, not necessarily 61 in the presentation. And let me scoot down there. So this was a really helpful comparison for us to see how Watertown compares with other communities that are about our same population. You'll notice when you look at that, that we're actually way above in almost all of the areas when it comes to the parks, whether it's the amount of acres, the number of parks, the number of residents per park is above and beyond what you'll see in most communities. So that was interesting. There were just a few areas where we are behind. My husband would really like the 18-hole golf course one, but I don't know about that. Okay, but then it also has an interesting statement there. It says it's giving recommendations as far as staffing, and it says that it's recommended that for the next 5 years, at a minimum, the existing ratio of full-time to part-time staff and the existing ratio of programming to maintenance staff remain the same for the next 5 years. That was actually interesting to me because it does seem to indicate that that ratio, although maybe behind what you're seeing in other places, at a minimum should, how I'm reading it is, should suffice for the next 5 years, although yes, behind what you're seeing in other areas. And then it does beg the question, although I agree with you, Mr. Blanky, that the parks that we have are definitely an asset to Watertown, but it does make us look and think about whether or not the number of parks we have are beyond our capacity to take care of or to be able to come alongside and keep up in the shape that they need to be kept up. So I have one final question, and it's more of a curiosity, and it might be for Jody. So here's my question, and it's definitely just something I'm curious about. I did some initial research. I'm wondering, I assume that your business, your organization, you do these types of open space plans for other communities?
Yes.
Okay. So are you seeing other communities in Wisconsin moving towards prioritizing HOAs to help to take care of parks within the neighborhoods, or you're not really seeing that as a part of the work that you're doing?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. To be honest, this is our first parks and open space plan that we have done in Wisconsin.
Okay.
So to answer that part of your question, I can't really speak to too much. However, our company is based out of Minneapolis. I work out of Vernon County in Wisconsin, but most of our projects to date have been done around the Twin Cities metro area and in greater Minnesota. Honestly, we have not worked very closely with too many HOAs outside of, I can think of one community in the Twin Cities that we have worked with. So it's not really something that has been a huge factor in these comprehensive parks and open space plans. I think primarily because we're generally hired by the city to work on public projects, and most of the HOA related projects would be private or semi-public or private.
It's beyond the scope of what you're being asked to do.
Yeah, however, we are we work on other types of plans, not just parks and open space plans, and we are aware that there is a big push for outdoor amenities to be built alongside, new residential developments, especially with senior housing. I think that, in our work, we try to look at what those amenities are available within a community. And similar to your earlier question about the private schools and the playgrounds, we're trying to be really careful about what we recommend for future park development, and knowing that resources are limited, and we don't want the city to go down a path of duplicating park developments or creating too many parks that they can't take care of in the future. It is something that we factor in. So we do take a look at if there are, publicly available recreation spaces that can lend themselves to a park system. We will factor that in, although we aren't necessarily planning for those investments.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'm going to be a while. I'm sorry, Mayor. I've been serving on Park and Rec for about 3 years. It's been an absolute pleasure working with that group. I'm very happy to see this study come along and highlight so many different things. We can look at the back of the room there, and we can see the community that has outdoor opportunities. That's actually sort of baked into our phrase here. So the place I actually want to look at and hone attention is actually going to be on page 63 of our packet here. And this talks a lot about the community survey and engagement. So we had, mentioned here on there's 196 people that participated over a 3-month period to provide input in addition to staff and folks like me. So I don't think the 196 counted me, but we'll see. But also, it's baked in here that having free public facilities that are well maintained is absolutely critical to the health of our community, in part because we do serve a community that is slightly below some of the income pieces that we have here. It's good to have something that's easily accessible like that. And in terms of the engagement here, you can see some of that. So we have most of our people in the city, 53%, who visited the parks daily or weekly. So they're definitely entwined with people's lives. We have here, and I believe that this is a question that I had asked during the Park and Rec presentation of this. We have 30% of people who walk to the parks or 5% that biked, which is much higher than you'd normally see in a community where, you know, people who drive to the parks is quote unquote only 63%. So people are taking advantage of neighborhood parks or combining a walk with a visit to the park. We have a great service that we provide for our residents, and that's indicated by 92% of the residents saying that they are somewhat satisfied or very satisfied by the parks. We have, on the programming side, it continues, 84% are satisfied with the program offerings, and 91% feel that the program fees are reasonable. So again, speaking to a community that demographically is a little bit below the state average, we're definitely meeting people where they are and bringing those amenities to there. There's a piece here, and I do want to talk about sort of the switch in terms of being able to maintain those facilities going forward. So going back to page 61 in the packet, it does talk a little bit about staffing, and the number to highlight here really is how are we doing on staffing as per, you know, National Park Agency performance. And so that has essentially a comparison of communities of about our size is around 8.2. We got about 7.8. If you factor that into about 22,000, we're running a deficit of staff for the parks at about 7.5 people. So I will be interested, obviously, going into the budget season, looking for opportunities to close that gap. Moving ahead, and there's a great deal of content here that we're not going to cover here tonight, but some of the improvements that are being recommended in this report are also pretty key, and I'm going to have a question for finance here in a bit, so be ready, Mark. So as we come to the improvements of existing parks, so you look at page 90, we have 9 playgrounds in the city that are in need of immediate replacement at our neighborhood parks. And you know, examples of there, you know, Lincoln Park, Washington Park. If you skip ahead to the next page on 91 where it talks about forthcoming parks, we actually have 3 slated in this plan here. We have something called Edgefield Subdivision, which would be part of the Hep Heights development that we are very happy to see out on County A. We have 2 other parks that were being looked at as, you know, not necessarily the playground that you think of, but we have Reagan Park and Rock River Ridge Park, which are being looked at as either hiking facilities or a place with a view of the river. If you've been paying attention to my Facebook page, there's a couple of teases on there about dog facilities. On page 92, you have one of those mentions of future expansion for a dog park at Brant Quirk. Also on page 92, you're going to note, and it's listed as $1 million capital project in our improvement thing. Chamberlain Playground is in need of a huge renovation and safety update, so I'm looking forward to hopefully providing some funding for that in a future year. Page 93, you have another mention of a dog park if you look closely. There's a possibility of using the training facility up on 12th Street where we previously had some fire equipment as, you know, a dog park or passive park in another part of the city. You have some other things in here that aren't necessarily building out parks. You have improving access to existing areas, so water and river access. You have signage. And one of the most important recommendations here, and something that we definitely are progressing with organizations like the YMCA, is a facility use agreement, which is recommended on page 95, which talks about how we have organizations that potentially are offering similar or duplicate programming, using the same facilities and using that in a cooperative and non-competitive manner. So we've taken steps at the Park and Rec, basically, to move forward with those. And then in terms of 96, these are some of the other future plans of things that are applicable. So Rock River District Plan is the one that I mentioned earlier. That talks about a very walkable downtown plan. We have a separate Riverside Park master plan that's intended to detail what we want to do with that key facility. There's the bicycle and pedestrian plan coming forward. And then we have a couple of other requirements around things like the ADA accessibility audit. There's also mention here, and this is something I've said a couple of times here, keyed out, that we've added some red tape to our city ordinances recently. So there's a recommendation here to ease them up to allow some additional flexibility in programming on page 96. So the finance question, and I promised I'd get to one eventually. So we have here between starting on page 98, there's some specific improvements that are recommended with dollar figures attached to them. And everybody, hopefully by now, is already starting to pour over our capital improvements budget, specifically the parks piece. So my question to finance and really to the parks director is, when are we going to get something that merges the recommendations from here, filtered and into the capital improvement projects, where we potentially look at what that means for future impact?
That'll be in place for the 27 year, since we've already had all of our capital improvements in for the 26 timeframe. So this will all be implemented in for 27 and future.
Okay, but I mentioned that in the context of, there was a question from another older person about where are the restrooms. So may not be in here, but it's already in the capital projects here. I guess I'm looking for the version that puts them all together in the capital for us to look at the one sheet of paper.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Mr. Arnett?
Couple of thoughts, and I'm newly elected, so I'm coming into this particular iteration of this process, relatively late in the game. I understand that, but I have been through it before in my last time that I was in this seat. What I experienced that time, I think, is actually appropriate and is directly related to Alder Davis's comments, which is the last time that I was here in this seat, and I actually came on board as a member of the public of the Parks Committee first, and was elected alder after that. We had gone through a fairly significant expansion of park spaces in that previous time, and the discussion essentially turned to, okay, and now how are we going to pay for all this, for taking care of all this? It was a lot, and we were not prepared for it. And there was essentially a shift in philosophy that occurred there for a bit of, okay, it's time to slow down adding parks and focus on paying for and taking care of what we have. And so just offer that as a first theme of, I think we should be prioritizing investment in our existing facilities over expanding to new areas that will require more expense and more people. The next point I'd like to make is, on those facilities, I do not believe that we are taking sufficient advantage of what is our greatest natural resource in this community, which is the river. And as a parks plan, I would like to see a larger emphasis on active use of the river as compared to passive enjoyment. So rather than focusing on trails and walkways and things, let's focus on piers and fishing and boating, because I know from everyone I talk to that they want to do that. And it, to my view on this plan, it's fairly absent. And I'd really like to see, if we're going to invest in something new, let's focus it on active use of the river. That is what will also draw people from outside the city to here. And then the last point is following on those partnerships with community groups. And I just want to stress, it's vital that we look at those community groups as true partners and not just another wallet for us to reach into. Because I think some of that's been what's been going on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Arnett. Mr. Byrd.
I'd like to echo Alderperson Arnett's comments. I think he was right on with the points made, and I think we did a very nice job of acquiring parks over the years, and that's an asset for Watertown that we can be proud of. But the important area of emphasis should be on maintenance and making what we have the best it can be, so that it's an asset that we can show off and be proud of. And I've heard comments from different people over the years that we are, and I'm not going to get into examples of parks that they felt were neglected, but they did feel within our city that some parks were not getting the maintenance and the attention they should. And that's an area of emphasis that probably can be looked at. But everything requires money, so you got to prioritize and figure out where the money should go. But I would be on the side of emphasizing the maintenance of what we have and improve on that where we can with the dollars that we have, and adding dollars where it makes sense to do so. I like YMCA talking about sharing facilities. I don't like duplication unnecessarily, and for them to want us to be involved and to share what we have with them is a great approach, and I think that's the right approach versus acquiring more land and making it tax exempt and having a duplication that they own it and they aren't able to use what we have. I want to share and work with partners like YMCA where we can. And they've made the request. I want us to be receptive to that where we can.
Mr. Lampe.
A couple of things, and I definitely agree with active use of water. I'm a heavy boater, fisher myself, and that frankly was one of the reasons I moved to this community in the first place, was accessibility of water activities. In some of these respects, we do have to give thanks to a number of the nonprofits, especially the Rock River Rescue, the Quirk Foundation, who have done a number of things on the active water side, whether that's put in the piers, the kayak docks, or some of the other facilities that we have out there. But I do agree that there are a lot of opportunities to do some lower dollar things, such as signage, such as advertising of some of the facilities, the docks, the access points we have built, directional pieces, and building on what potentially could be additional recreational tourism and fishing tourism. We had a giant catfish caught here. It would be nice to highlight that for a bit. We also, I will say, in terms of the development of items in the parks, we also have had a wonderful partnership with places like the Watertown Area Community Foundation. They have done fantastic things. Alder Smith and I were involved in a wall project, getting that off the ground not too long. The city put in some money, but we also had a lot of private funds. So one of the great things about this community is that it has been very generous in terms of helping develop specific facilities for the public good, and essentially donating and making them available. But definitely agree with maintaining the river as, or basically promoting the river as an asset.
And, Christine, are you looking to make a resolution for next time?
If everyone is okay with everything, then I'll draft that up for the next meeting.
Okay. Some people made some comments on anything you'd like to see different?
I've made my comments. I would like
You
to
did,
see
yeah.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
See you in a few weeks.
Okay. Mr. Lamb.
I just wanted to point out, if you're looking specifically to expand, on page 94, there's an area about river and water access. And so for some more specific direction, I think for the Park and Rec Director, are we looking for expanding that out? Do you want more of a map? I mean, is there additional guidance we can provide her tonight to basically make sure that's built into the report?
I would think that even just incorporating it as a sub-goal in there in terms of looking at the potential development of additional facilities to support, in particular, fishing and boating, which isn't always just about access points. I think that would be, even that would be helpful.
Are the kayaks new this year, Christine? I know they were.
Yes, so we actually partnered with Watertown Leadership last year to put in kayak rentals at Riverside Park, and new this year with the partnership with the Quirk Foundation, we were able to put in more kayak rentals at the town square. So we have been trying to make the river what it should be here in Watertown, because we have a beautiful thing running right through our city. So that is what we have been doing, not necessarily in a plan we had before, but something that we saw as an asset, so we started working on it prior to the plan. But we do have water, river and water access in here, so it is noted that we will be moving forward with some other things that will be happening in the future. We just don't have a plan for them yet because this is just the main draft of what we're looking for, and then we'll come up with a plan after that.
I'll just say, if in particular we could focus on fishing, I think that would be the biggest single improvement you could make.
We did actually get some points of view during our community engagement where they wanted to do some fishing piers in Hayden Pond. So that would be an area where we don't currently have fishing piers. We do have them along Riverside Park and through a couple other access points, but that would be one that we haven't touched yet. So we are looking into that as well.
Might also help the people who are fishing off bridges if they had someplace else that was better.
I can't help that one, but.
The
Yes.
park by Commock Avenue's got a little fishing
Yes,
pier, I
we
believe,
do
right?
have Willow Street and Front Street are also fishing areas that we do maintain. So there are more than I think people realize.
When was the one on Commock Avenue put in? Was that fairly recent too?
That one is the Heron.
Heron Park, okay.
Yep.
It's newer.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Next on our new business, review and take possible action Riverside bathrooms for Riverfest. Left as a possible resolution for next meeting, but had a few of you make comments to me. So, Mr. Berg, you want to start first?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, we had our discussion briefly in reference to the minutes at our last meeting, and it led to the Daily Times doing what they do, and that's to write about the topic. It generated conversation on Facebook, and I looked, and I think tonight there was 134 comments on Facebook on that article that was written by the Daily Times, and I would have to, just looking at the comments that were made, there was probably 80% of them that were favorable to the idea of the Riverside Park bathrooms being made available and open for the Riverfest event. So I would like to start off with a motion, because it does say in our minutes, in our agenda, that we have the ability to discuss and take action. And there's nothing wrong with an action on this topic tonight. So my motion would be to make the Riverside Park bathrooms open and available for the Riverfest event and their hours of operation.
Just write that down, Mr. Berg. Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
Second by Moldenhauer. Okay, any discussion on that? Mr. Smith?
Yes, I think that is exactly the way to go, to emphatically write the impression that I think is wrongly becoming a topic of conversation in our community as to the mistaken priorities that we have in Watertown by considering building brand new and currently open restrooms at our #1 park in the city and closing it during the #1 celebration in our city. And the comments that I have been hearing basically address two basic points. One is that how can the city spend taxpayer dollars at a quite substantial amount to provide good restrooms to replace those that were seriously deteriorated, use taxpayers' funding, and then at the point in time when the taxpayers are thronging to this wonderful park, close it down and invite our citizens to enjoy the porta potties. It makes no sense to people. They're offended that their taxpayer dollars are being so callously used, and yet their use is being denied at a time when there's probably the greatest demand for them. But I guess just from a personal point of view, I just want to address what I consider to be one of the greatest ironies that I can think of, which is we just spent maybe a half an hour discussing the parks, the open spaces in our community, the importance of them to our community, both as an asset to those living within our community and a major draw to those on the outside. There have been concerns expressed about restrooms, and those were aimed primarily where there were either no restrooms or inadequate restrooms. Here we have brand new restrooms that we should be eager to showcase and say, this is representative of the values that we have in the city. In our premier park, during our greatest celebration, we now have our restrooms that have been of substantial expense open and available not only to our residents but to our visitors, and to send the message that for financial reasons or for whatever other justification, during a celebration when we have thousands of people at Riverside Park, something that we have discussed many times, and how wonderful it would be that we would bring more tourists to our community, more visitors to our community, more people who would be part of our community and join with us in this wonderful community. And we send them the message, you're welcome to spend your dollars, but don't plan on using anything but a porta potty. That is foolish to the max. And I, for one, think that this resolution is exactly what we need. I think it not only will right a wrong-headed approach, but I think it will help to dissuade the view that Watertown is kind of backwards in its priorities and values, and that in fact we intend to have this wonderful Riverfest celebration in our premier park, and our restrooms will be open for use.
Mr. Molnauer.
I got to go along with that. I can't say anything different. It's the same way I want to say it, what Alderman Smith said. If I went to a city and restrooms were new and they were all locked up and I was going to spend money and here's porta potties, and I'd wonder what's going on. I echo what Alderman Smith said.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Molnauer. Ms. Davis.
One concern I have about the resolution that's on the table is that we have already generated a estimated extraordinary cost for this event and come to an agreement. And I suspect, Mr. Lampy, I think you could answer this question for me, that in the planning and coming up with costs for those estimated extraordinary costs, you planned around renting the porta potties, and is that how those extraordinary costs were estimated on rental of porta potties? Can he answer that question?
Yeah.
No. Okay, well, I'm going to surmise that they were.
So I believe Riverfest Committee had approached the city back in December or November, around that time frame, and when the bathrooms weren't completed yet, and asked if they'd be ready, and the city had told them to plan for them possibly not to be ready. So I believe Riverfest Committee had ordered enough porta potties to maintain the ratio.
Wasn't that last year?
Well, this past December when they were ordering for this August.
For this past August or for the upcoming?
This August coming up, when they were trying to determine if the bathrooms were opened up like June, middle of June, I believe, or so, second week in June.
Well, that's something maybe we could look into to just get some clarification. It's also my understanding that one of the reasons that the Riverfest Committee has made this decision is for safety reasons and patrol reasons. And they indicated that for the police department, when the Riverfest uses the bathrooms, they need to make sure that they have both male and female police patrols in case there's an incident that would require them to go into the bathroom. I don't know if you can answer that. Is that true?
I was not part of any Riverfest discussions relating to that, so I can't offer, I can't say whether or not that conversation actually took place.
Okay, thank you. And then the other reason then has to do with just overall costs and cleanliness and keeping it clean. It's my understanding that this is all kind of a contracted basis where they come and they clean them and they supply them and they take them away. And so for ease of use and cleanliness, and then finally to make sure that the new restrooms are in good standing order for years to come and that there aren't incidents that could harm them, this seemed like a wise decision. So that's my understanding. I just wanted to add that.
Thank you. Mr. Blanky?
So I'm going to piggyback right off of what Alder Davis said, and the argument of keeping the bathrooms in great condition for years to come. And I was under, first of all, there's wear and tear at any public facility. Yes, Riverfest is probably a year's worth of wear and tear in a week. But that's why we built it to the standard we did. And as I understood it, this happened before I was on the council, but part of the reason for replacing the bathrooms was specifically because of Riverfest and the need for it there. So I don't want to go over everything that Alderberg and Alder Smith and Alder Moldenhauer already said, just to say that I'm in agreement, but one of the other items that I was going to speak to is the patrol issue. And I understand that that's, and I'm not disparaging the opinion of our chief or any of our police officers, but the argument that that's an area where people can congregate and cause trouble, to me, that's anywhere. There are a lot of places at Riverside Park where people can congregate out of view, where there's not patrol, or where they can see patrol coming from a long ways away and be causing trouble. And along with that, they patrolled it for how many years prior to us having a new bathroom? And so there's a way to get it done. We have the police auxiliary that can help out in that regard. We have many other people that can help out in that situation. But I think that that's one of the issues that I understand their concerns, that it's a little bit more difficult to organize manpower to do it. But again, we constructed these under the premise that with one of the items being that they were needed for Riverfest. So I agree that they definitely need to be open for this.
I'll see if some that haven't spoken. Hang on, Mr. Smith. Anybody hasn't spoken want to speak first? Mr. Arnett?
I have a question for the maker of the motion, which is, from the motion so far, it is not clear to me who is paying for this. Would you care to clarify that?
All right, Alderperson Arnett, first of all, on the topic of cost, I deal with a lot of contracts in my real estate, and contracts and agreements are about relationships. And the company you have that's providing porta potties, they want to have a continuing relationship with Watertown. You've got a deal worked out with them right now. You have right now a month notice as far as a potential change in the need for the number of porta potties. There's no reason why that vendor, if they want to keep Watertown as an account, that they won't be receptive to new information, and that doesn't allow them to make some change in the number needed. You told us previously 45 porta potties needed. let's tell you that these bathrooms being made available is going to take care of that side of the Riverfest, and the need is 25 instead of 45. That negotiation with them should occur if they want to continue the relationship. You have choices other than that company if they want to be, playing hardball and that kind of thing, from my view. But that said, if this year, because of the fact that you have a contract, and I'm saying a big if you can't get them to negotiate and make a change in that number, the city can absorb this cost. I know people that would, I'm just talking hypothetically again, but if the cost of cleaning those bathrooms each day is, let's use $250 times 4 days is $1,000. I mean, you can do an awful lot of work for $250 and an awful lot of labor as far as going there and taking care of. I don't know the number. I'm just picking a number out of what I think is a reasonable amount. But $1,000, if we have to pay for that because of the Riverfest committee not being able to renegotiate that number of porta potties and the amount of dollars they got allocated for, then if we absorb that cost for this year, then so be it. We have an agreement, and that is for the first $60,000 we split cost, and then after that $60,000, then the cost goes to the Riverfest committee. So either way, we're covered. I think it's a non-issue from my view.
I think Mr. Arnett was curious.
So,
Sorry.
That doesn't clarify. So are you going to state that your motion has no statement whatsoever as to who's to pay for it? I'm just looking for a clarification.
Well, again, right now, I'm saying that Watertown would pay for the cost, but it's also in the context of an agreement which also shares cost up to $60,000.
And if this goes above and beyond that cost, you're going to expect the Riverfest committee to cover it?
They would cover it. That's what the agreement says right now.
So we're going to unilaterally add a cost without their agreement and hold them accountable for it. I'm just trying to make sure I understand the motion.
Your motion is that Riverfest would pay half. If it exceeds the $60,000, they have to pay for the whole thing, is what you're saying with your motion. That be clarified anyway, Stephen? Are we good? Okay. Anybody else have a comment? Mr. Smith?
My comments previously were focusing upon the importance of having the Riverfest access to these new restrooms. I think there probably is overwhelming support for that. The issue I think that Alderman Arnett is bringing up and Alderperson Davis brought up is the legitimate question of fairness in apportionment of cost. I think that the agreement that we entered into with the Riverfest Committee to split the first $60,000 of cost was a very fair partnership approach to those expenses. And I have the utmost confidence and appreciation for the Riverfest Committee, because I think behind a lot of these recommendations are their commitment to try to restrain costs which have a potential of running away, and I take my hat off for that. So I would think that a fair approach would be that should the total costs of the Riverfest expenses that would be allocated to the Riverfest Committee and the city split 50-50 up to $60,000, if the total cost with the restrooms open are equal or less than $60,000, I see no need for a change. If the expenses go above $60,000, then I would not want to prejudge whether or not that was exclusively because of the added expenses that are the result of decision to keep the restrooms open, then I think that whatever amounts are attributable to that should be exempted out and not be an expense that the Riverfest Committee should have to fund. So I have no idea how much this is going to be, but I know the Riverfest Committee is trying to make decisions that are going to promote the success of Riverfest in an efficient way. I don't think we could ask for more than that. And a lot of this that's uncertain at this point in time, and a lot of it that relates to expenses, is because of changes that have come about recently. The fortunate change that these restrooms are going to be open. It was a very real possibility they would not be open, in which instance Riverfest made wise decisions in trying to provide other access. What the contracts say, what can be changed, all of those things are not possible for us to determine for certain, certainly tonight, maybe not even in 2 weeks, but what I do believe is that there needs to be consideration toward the Riverfest Committee that if this decision that is being promoted to keep these restrooms open have additional costs that exceed the amount that we will be splitting, that the city should exempt them from the calculation.
Is that an amendment?
That's a motion. That's an amendment.
I'm just, I don't anticipate that this resolution is going to be a one sentence, be it therefore resolved. I think there are whereas provisions, and I think that these can be included in there, and that we can also put in a be it therefore resolved provision that deals with the allocation of the extra expense.
Have to make an amendment.
So currently there's not a motion for an amendment from what Alderman Smith is saying.
Just
I am accepting the action that's currently on the table for the motion to be a direction to city staff, namely myself, to draft a resolution for the next council meeting.
Gotcha.
So depending on how the vote turns out, I will prepare a resolution and make it so that there's a formal action by the council to take the action that they
change it as we need to. Okay. Ms. Davis.
So I'm kind of concerned about the precedent of asking a special event organizer to, requiring them to add on potentially an additional cost. They have a line item, I'm going to guess, in their budget for bathrooms. I would be more comfortable if there was an examination to see how much it would cost or how much they could save on that line item, and if they could open the restrooms for the same cost for that line item, then to go ahead and do it. But if it's going to be an additional cost to that line item, I'm not very comfortable with requiring a special event organizer to do something that they have decided to do for a variety of reasons: cost, safety, cleanliness, and many others.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Sorry, Mr. Arnett, go ahead.
I would just offer my support in what Alder Smith has offered as a way forward, which is have the bathrooms open, but essentially the city will cover the cost if it exceeds the $60,000 cap. I would be in favor of that.
Is that a motion?
So I think, Mr. Berg, we're just getting consensus to have a resolution for next meeting.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
Let's look at the context. This is not the biggest issue we're going to deal with as a city. I don't see, we've given notice of our intent, and I don't know why we can't take action, give them a month notice. This is a month prior to Riverfest. There's a motion by me, and there was an amendment implied by both Alderperson Smith and Arnett. I agree with both of them. I'm fine. I don't have any problem with agreeing to the amendment if it happens. And I feel we can do it tonight. I don't feel we should delay 2 more weeks, draw this out and make it a bigger issue than it is. You have an authority as our chief executive if you want to do it, but I'm just giving you the opinion that I have that this action should get closed and done with tonight and move on to bigger issues.
Ms. Davis?
I'll just throw out one more thing. I would rather that the free market decides, in that if Riverfest organizers go forward with their original plan and they get a lot of their customers complaining about it, that they learn from that and adjust for next time. I'd rather that we let the special event organizer make this decision and then answer to the customers that they're serving.
I call the question.
Okay. Take a vote on calling the question. Need 6 to call it. Megan?
Berg,
Yes.
Bartz,
Aye.
Blanky,
No.
Smith,
No.
Arnett, Wetzel, Moldenhauer,
No.
Davis, Lampy,
I'm refusing of all this discussion. I'm sorry.
motion failed.
Mr. Smith?
If we're going to move forward, and there is a motion on the floor, and I think that is appropriate, it's certainly been noticed, and it is within the scope of the action envisioned by our agenda, then it is it's something that is going to only be reflected in our minutes because there's no written resolution for us to actually vote upon and archive. And so in light of that, I would like to simply amend the initial motion as you had originally inquired about as to whether it was an amendment. I think now it would be wiser to go that route. And other than the clear motion that Alderman Berg made, to amend that to include the understanding that up to $60,000 the agreement will continue as had been envisioned, and if all these expenses are within the scope of the $60,000, we have no financial issue. But that if this causes the total expenditures to go over $60,000, and we had assigned that responsibility financially to the Riverfest Committee, then I believe it would be appropriate, since the city is mandating it, that the city fund any overage over that $60,000 that relate to the restrooms.
Okay, motion by Smith.
I believe
Second
you
by
can
Berg.
accept as a friendly because he was a seconder.
Motion on the table is by Mr. Berg and
The original motion, so.
Sorry, you're right.
So motion amendment by Smith.
I'll second.
Okay, second by Arnett. You vote on the amendment? Okay. Any discussion on the amendment? Okay. You take the roll, please, Megan.
Smith,
Aye.
Arnett,
Aye.
Wetzel,
Aye.
Moldenhauer, Davis, Lampy, Berg,
Aye.
Bartz, Blanky,
Aye.
motion passed.
Okay, so we're at Riverside bathrooms being open, shared cost up to $60,000. If the bathroom cost makes that cost go over $60,000, city covers it. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, any further discussion on that?
Sorry.
Mr. Blanky?
Just one item of clarity, and this is why I was opposed to calling the question. So there will be no formal resolution coming before the council. This is our final vote on this. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
We'll draft the resolution.
It's the danger of legislating on the floor.
Yep.
that I just want to make sure that that's where we're at. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Berg?
My reason for calling the question was I felt we had the discussion, we were ready for taking action. I have no problem if it didn't happen, but I want to take action tonight, and I'm glad with the action and the motion that was made and the amendment that was initiated.
Okay. I'd say if you wind up passing, it'd be best to the Park and Rec to be able to clean those bathrooms. So there's times maybe someone's not available. If there's just a male cleaning, you might have to shut the women's down to clean it and then open it back up for somebody else. So it's going to be the best of ability, okay? All right, if no further discussion, we'll take a roll. Which, do we start with Smith?
Berg.
Berg, original, okay.
Berg.
Aye.
Bartz.
Aye.
Blanky.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Arnett.
Aye.
Wetzel.
Aye.
Moldenhauer. Davis. Motion passed.
Okay, thank you. All right, next, miscellaneous business. Payroll summary, May 28th through June 10th. Move on. Mr. Berg?
Yeah, Mayor Stocks, I was just making note of the fire department. It looks like on their overtime budget, they've got $170,000 that was shown here, but they've used up $140,000 of that $170,000. They've gone through roughly half the year. I see we've got our chief online with us,
She was here just in case.
yeah, just if she can help clarify, it looks like we have $30,000 left to work with, and we have quite a bit of time left with the rest of the year that is still to play out. How are you going to stay within, or if you're not, how are you going to take care of your overtime needs for the balance of 2025?
You there, Chief?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay.
So we have been understaffed. We weren't at full capacity for our staffing for the first little bit of the year. We just recently got fully staffed this month. That being said, this last employee that we just hired also has a month of onboarding to go through, so doesn't count towards our staffing quite yet. Personnel are also that we're hiring are firefighter EMTs, and they are going to school for paramedic, so we need to cover their time when they are in school. We currently have 4 firefighter EMTs, our 4 most recent hires, who are either in school or will be attending school in the very near future. So it's a matter of meeting our staffing needs and just the personnel that we have available to work.
Thank you, Chief.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else to move on? Licenses, review and take action, application for a temporary Class B wine and temporary Class B beer license for the July 4th celebration event on July 3rd and July 4th, 2025, sponsored by American Legion, Pitterly, Bowden, Post 189 during the hours of 8 a.m. and 10 p.m. for location Riverside Park.
I'll move for adoption.
Okay, motion by Berg, second by Mollenhauer. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Move on to ordinances. Ordinance 25-18, amend chapter 545 subdivision of land through the amendments of language of sections 545-14A5, 545-42C5, 545-42C7, 545-50, and 545-15, sponsored by myself and the Planning Commission on its first reading.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Bartz, second by Blanky. Okay. All right. Nothing further. You take a roll, please.
Bartz.
Aye.
Blanky.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Arnett.
Aye.
Wetzel.
Aye.
Moldenhauer. Davis. Lampy. Berg.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Next, ordinance 25-19, amend chapter 550 zoning code through the amendment of language to section 550-150, sponsored by myself and the Planning Commission on its first reading.
I'll move for adoption.
Mr. Blanky?
Second.
Okay. Motion by Berg, second by Blanky. Any discussion?
Berg,
Aye.
Bartz, Blanky,
Aye.
Smith, Arnett,
Aye.
Wetzel, Moldenhauer, Davis, Lampy. Motion carried.
Okay, thank you. On the resolutions, A, Exhibit 9759, resolution to approve WisDOT MOU for Opticom use, sponsored by myself and the Finance Committee.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Davis, second by Wetzel. Okay, any discussion? Okay.
Davis,
Aye.
Lampy, Berg,
Aye.
Bartz,
Aye.
Blanky,
Aye.
Smith,
Aye.
Arnett,
Aye.
Wetzel, Moldenhauer.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay, next, B, Exhibit 9760, resolution to adopt the amendments to municipal bond deposit schedule, sponsored by myself and the Finance Committee.
So moved.
Motion by Arnett. Second by Lampy. Any discussion? Okay.
Arnett,
Aye.
Wetzel, Moldenhauer, Davis,
Aye.
Lampy, Berg,
Aye.
Bartz,
Aye.
Blanky, Smith.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. C, Exhibit 9761, resolution to amend TID number 8, Fund 23 budget, sponsored by myself and the Finance Committee. Motion by Bartz. Second by Davis. Okay. Discussion.
Bartz,
Aye.
Blanky,
Aye.
Smith, Arnett,
Aye.
Wetzel, Moldenhauer,
Aye.
Davis, Lampy, Berg. Motion carried.
Okay, D, Exhibit 9762, amend TID 7 budget, sponsored by myself and the Finance Committee.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
I'm going to have to abstain from this item D and also item F.
Okay, so no, thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Blanky?
I'll move for resolution 9762.
Okay, got a motion, I got a second by Berg. Okay, any discussion on it?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
So I think we all recognize the tremendous value and tradition represented by the 1st Brigade Band to this community, and particularly this project, also the role of donations that are coming to play for this, and appreciative of those people who step forward with that, and also understanding that there's a timing consideration here. I still reflect on that on prior instances where we award TID funds, they have to survive the if not but for test. If not but for the TID funds, this would not happen. And we have applied that on a fairly rigorous basis to prior projects. And I'm concerned that it does not appear that we have applied that in this particular case because there are other properties that will be affected by this improvement that are not in the conversation. So it has nothing to do with the particular worthiness of the one who is in the part of the conversation. It's the fact that we did not address the other properties that will benefit from this. And so with that in regard, this to me at this point in time does not pass the if not but for test because we have incomplete information.
Okay, Mr. Arnett. Mr. Lampy.
Mayor, I just wanted to say I support Alders Arnett's comments in the discussion we had at the finance meeting. We did talk about this as a potential improvement for some of the other potential developments in this area. So I do agree that this does not necessarily address the other improvements that we did expect to receive some economic benefit from.
Mr. Berg?
Yeah, that area of Watertown, next to the tracks and off of 5th Street there, that has been empty forever. And for us to have the potential of a development which is going to add to the tax base and obviously assist a worthy nonprofit, the 1st Brigade Band, in doing so, it's a win-win in every regard. So I understand $110,000 is a significant dollar amount that's going to get allocated to help make this happen. But Public Works has made a requirement for that street extension as a condition of this to happen. And I want development to occur. And again, because of this long-standing vacancy of that land being underutilized and an opportunity for it to become reality, it's a small price to pay out of a TID that has the funds available to help make something happen that's not there now, and to create vibrancy where we don't have it. And it's a unique type of use, and from what I understand, it's going to complement and add to that tax base and pay it back in a period of time. So I see it as, I understand the concept behind TIF, but it's been there forever, vacant, and if it took this to actually initiate and incentivize development to occur, then, and it gets paid back with the funds that are currently there, we're not going to feed it with tax dollars. It's going to get paid for with proceeds within that TID that's currently there. So I think it fits the criteria and justifies a yes vote.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, Megan.
Blanky.
Aye.
Arnett.
No. No.
Wetzel.
Yes.
Moldenhauer.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Lampy. Berg.
Yes.
Bartz.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay, thank you. E, Exhibit 9763, Resolution to award South Church Street Shared Use Path Transportation Alternatives Program Grant Design Projects to R.H. Batterman and Company Incorporated for $228,039, sponsored by Alderman Arnett and the Public Works Commission.
Mr. Mayor, move for 9763.
Motion by Arnett. Second by Bartz. Oh, sorry. Any discussion? Mr. Blanky.
I just want to echo the comments that I made in the Public Works meeting for this. This is a large price tag. When this is said and done, this path is going to cost the city close to, if not more than, $500,000. However, when you look at the area that it's going to be servicing, it's going to connect Air Park Drive with the rest of the city. Currently, there is no pedestrian walkway to get from that area of town to the rest of town. And part of the concern is you see people walking on Church Street, and the speed limit in that area is 45 miles an hour. And it's dangerous. And I believe Alder Arnett pointed out he's seen people pushing strollers in that area. And it's a dangerous situation. And we have development or in the future in that area, so that could be an area of town where we're going to see a lot of growth. So doing this now is imperative, I think, for the city.
Mr. Mayor, if I may?
Yes, Mr. Arnett.
Since you do not have the rest of the alders do not have the benefit of the Public Works minutes from last week, again, the project is to run a walkway essentially from Quick Trip out to Walmart. Let's just speak cleanly. That's where we're going, all right? That's what's there. That's why people are going there back and forth. This is a grant that we have been applying for as a city for, I think, going on 8 years, finally awarded. So we have to bear the cost of the design. The state will cover 80% of the construction costs. It is a big deal. I think there's a variety of reasons to support it. The other point I'd like to make is this is the kind of thing that we should be looking at the funds left over from TID 4 for. If there was any better project in which to apply funds remaining from TID 4, it would be this one. Because this is going toward the activity generated by that TID. Like, it's literally being put in because of that. So we have funds left over from TID 4. We need to re-examine the potential allocation of those funds, and this project needs to be part of that consideration. That's not for us to take action tonight. I'm just planting that seed.
Anyone else? Mr. Lampy?
I'm always interested in the mechanics of this. So you say this wouldn't be part of tonight's resolution. By what mechanism would we propose recovering funds from essentially TID 4 to reapply to either the design piece here or the facilitation of the project later?
Well, at some point, this council will need to make a decision about the allocations of those funds. And at that point, we can designate this project as one of the projects that we're putting those funds toward.
Thank you.
Ms. Tate?
And your future.
Wouldn't it come back to Finance Committee for more discussion? The funds from TID 4. And then from there, move on.
Yes, it would, yes. Okay. Mr. Berg?
I like the comments from Alderperson Arnett, but I think what I heard on the dollars available from TID 4 on that closing and retiring was in the $400,000 number. And this would be taking a large portion of those dollars out for a worthy cause, but I've seen a lot of potential uses and requests for those same dollars, so I think it's competing with a lot of other ideas that want those same dollars, and maybe it would win out when it comes down to the best use of those funds, but I've seen quite a few ideas requesting those same dollars.
Okay. Okay, Megan?
Arnett,
Yes.
Wetzel, Moldenhauer, Davis, Lampy, Berg, Bartz, Blanky, Smith. Motion carried.
Okay, item F, Mr. Smith, you're recusing from F again?
Excuse me?
You're going to recuse yourself from F?
From F, yes,
Okay.
I'm going to abstain.
Right. Exhibit 9764, resolution to approve counteroffer on offer to purchase city-owned property, sponsored by myself and the Finance Committee.
Mr. Mayor, so moved.
Seconded.
Okay, motion by Arnett, second by Berg. Okay.
Arnett,
Aye.
Wetzel,
Aye.
Moldenhauer, Davis, Lampy, Berg, Bartz, Blanky. Motion carried.
Okay, thank you. Last, we have comments, suggestions from citizens present. You can state your name and address. I have up to 3 minutes.
Chris Ross.
My name is Reverend Dr. Christopher Ross. I live at 432 West Grover, Cottage Road, but I serve here in Watertown as pastor of First Congregational United Church of Christ. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I am part of the local group known as Building a Welcoming Watertown, first begun by 4 Watertown congregations. I'll be right to speak because too many folks have been kept in the cold this past winter while the city has unfortunately. With too many in the city we govern having frozen to death or unfrighteningly close. When anyone finds themselves in danger of freezing to death, that's on all of us. A proposal for community overnight warming shelter based on a public-private partnership has now been submitted. I can only hope that when this proposal comes forward, it gets as much attention as the debate between porta potties versus public bathrooms. And so, we'd still like to remind you of some scriptural wisdom from the same source that so many of you and we claim to espouse. Jeremiah chapter 20, verse 13 tells us, "Sing to the Lord, praise to the Lord, for he has delivered the life of the needy." Jeremiah chapter 22, verse 3 says, "Thus says the Lord, act with justice and righteousness, and deliver from the hand of the oppressor anyone who has been robbed. And do no wrong or violence to the alien, the orphan, and the widow, or shed innocent blood in this place." Jeremiah chapter 22, verse 16 tells us, "You judged the cause of the poor and needy, then it was well. Is not this to know me, says the Lord?" Ezekiel chapter 16:49 says, "This was the guilt of your sister Sodom. She and her daughters had pride, excess of food, and prosperous ease, but did not aid the poor and needy." Ezekiel chapter 18, verses 12 through 13 says, "Oppressing the poor and needy, committing robbery, does not restore the pledge. Lifts eyes to the idols, commits abomination, takes advance or accrued interest. Shall he live? He shall not. He has done all these abominable things. He shall surely die." Ezekiel chapter 22, verse 29. "The people of the land have practiced extortion and committed robbery. They have oppressed the poor and needy and have extorted from the alien who have with us." Ezekiel chapter 34, verses 18 and 19. "Is it not enough for you to feed on the good pasture, but you must tread down with your feet the rest of your pasture? And when you drink of clean water, must you foul the rest with your feet? And must my sheep eat what you have trodden with your feet, and drink what you have fouled with your feet?" Ezekiel chapter 47, verse 22. "You shall allot it as an inheritance for yourselves and for the aliens who reside among you."
Thank you.
Jeremy Schmidt.
Thank you. Thank you. Jeremy Schmidt, 1011 Meadow Street, Watertown, Wisconsin. I'm part of the Building of Welcoming Watertown, pro tem treasurer currently of the board. I ask you for your support of a warming shelter, and these are the reasons why. December 11th, 2018, 53-year-old homeless man was found dead at Lions Park Pavilion in Fort Atkinson. His name was Keith Loloff. January 2024, William D. Hart of Antigo, homeless man found in Lake Park. It's while he believed his death was due to exposure to frigid temperatures. March 2024, Mark Fuchsteiner of La Crosse, 54-year-old homeless man found dead near downtown La Crosse. Hypothermia was a contributing factor of the cause of death. October 6, 2024, 2 men in Janesville. Apparently homeless men were found dead at the same park gazebo in Janesville in October. October 8th, second man was found at 11:15, dead at the same scene. November 2024, Garrick Dixon of Wausau, 37-year-old homeless man found deceased in a Marathon Park. Advocates note a lack of shelter played a role. January 22nd, 2025, homeless female was found, 49-year-old Jennifer Lust in Watertown, downtown. February 25, homeless male was found in a storage unit in Watertown. The male was recently evicted from a unit in Watertown 3 to 6 months prior. June 29th, 2025, a homeless man in Homeland, Wisconsin was found unresponsive. Information on the individual's housing status has not been released. Advocacy. Many deaths of homeless individuals go unnoticed or unreported, meaning the actual number is likely higher than official statistics. Homeless individuals often lack the support systems and resources necessary to address health challenges and avoid exposure to dangerous elements. Efforts are underway in various communities, such as building a welcoming Watertown by advocating for a warming shelter in the city of Watertown. Increased support and advocacy is needed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary Edstrom.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mare Edstrom. I live at 208 Williams Street in Watertown. I've lived in Watertown for 13 years, and I've been musically active here for over 20 years. My pronouns are she, her, and I am part of the local group known as Building a Welcoming Watertown. First begun by 4 Watertown area congregations. We rise to speak because too many folks, as you just heard, have been kept in the cold this past winter and in previous winters. While the city has done far too little, with too many in the city you govern having frozen to death or come frighteningly close. And we challenge the frequent unwelcome message this city sends to outsiders, which I have dealt with online quite a bit this year and seen firsthand. When folks find themselves in danger of freezing to death, that's on all of us. A proposal for a community emergency warming shelter based on a public-private partnership has now been submitted to the mayor. And so we rise to remind you of some scriptural wisdom from the same source so many of you claim to espouse. That is the Holy Bible, God's Word. On a personal note, I've been a Christian since I was 3.5 years old. And perhaps, like others here, I've been through significant trauma in my life, sometimes at the hands of so-called Christians. Nonetheless, my faith has been the primary force that has carried me this far to my 60th year here on earth, against the odds. So, the words I'm about to read, if I still have time, are very real, and the words you've been hearing for several weeks now and months. They're very meaningful to me on a personal level. The good Lord has always provided at least one human friend throughout my life journey. Sometimes one helping hand and one caring heart is all it takes to sustain a human life. Micah 6:8. God has told you, O mortal, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you, but to do justice, and to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Berg, second by Davis. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?